So now we're going to go to reassembly. So you want to clean it off. You can wipe the outside with a little bit of rubbing alcohol if you want, and a rag just to get kind of the grime from the corrosion X off. We then want to put the back plate on the motor. You want to make sure your motor back plate is at the correct orientation, or else it won't line up with the screw holes in the mast. So you want the two big ears on the left and right side if we're referencing the wire. And then we want the top screw hole to be facing up, not downwards towards the wire. So you have 1 screw, 2, and 3 will be facing up so we can access it. This one only has 2 screws, so you won't see the third one today. So we put in each screw. I put them in loosely until I get all of them in place. And I also put a little bit of corrosion X on them. It doesn't hurt to add a little bit. So I'll put the last screw in for you here. I have a little squeeze bottle of corrosion X. I throw a little bit on the threads and then put it in. And so now that this is my last screw going in, I will go ahead and snug it up. These don't need to be crazy tight at all, just snug. So I'll usually go diagonal on them and snug each one up, right? And then I'll just check them one time to make sure they're good. And they don't need to be torqued hard, just snug, and that's all. They don't come loose. All right, so now we're ready to insert it back onto the mast. So I haven't touched the mast clamp. It's the same as it was when we removed it. So we line up the motor with the wire pointed towards the base plate, and we just slide and wiggle it in place. And it will take sometimes a little bit of force wiggling to get it exactly where you need it. And then you want to make sure that your holes are lined up visually so that your screws go in straight and that they don't get cross-threaded. So let me get my other tool here. These are going into plastic. I do not put corrosion X on them. If you have the newer one with the brass inserts, you're welcome to put some corrosion X if you'd like. So we just line up, and then I visualize it that it's not going in crooked. If you see it starting crooked like this, make sure it's straight. So we'll go all the way in with it, and we will tighten it up snug. Again, doesn't need to be crazy tight, but a little bit snug is perfect. Now we'll do the second one on the other side. Doesn't matter what order you put these in. If you have the third hole, it's easiest to usually put the top one in first because that keeps the motor from wanting to fall out, and then the side ones will go in easier once you do that. All right, so next step is we can do the prop hub. Again, all these screws are the same size as far as length and thread. They're all 4 millimeters. So I'm gonna get them all through the hub, and then I'm gonna put a dab of corrosion X on each one. So I just get them all started a bit. All right, and now that they're each sticking through, I'm just gonna put a little dab of corrosion X with my squeeze bottle on them. Not necessary, but it does help them come out if you leave them for an extended period of time. This doesn't matter the orientation that it goes, so it doesn't really matter how you apply it as long as you line up all 4 holes. So I try to get, again, each of them started. And then once I have each of them started, I'll go ahead and bring them all the way in. So we're almost there. And it has a little lip on the back of this prop hub where it'll self-center also, and then obviously the screws themselves hold it centered. So I just go crisscross between the screws and torque them down. Again, same tension as what we put on the back plate, just snug. You don't need to crank on them. And I'll just double check that each one of these are snug, and we're good. So next are prop blades. They only go in one direction, and it doesn't matter which blade goes where. So you just line up the little insert with the hole, and you get your screw started, and then they'll drop in place, and then just give a little pressure and start to thread them in, and the hole on the opposite side will line up. With these, you want to go snug and then back off about a half a turn. If you have Loctite or something like that, feel free to put Loctite in. So there I'm snug, and I'm just going to back off a shade, and that's where you need to be. I'll do the other one here. So if you line up this edge here with the blade, that kind of puts the hole where it needs to go, to where you'll drop the screw right in. If we over tighten these and you have any friction on the blades, they won't reopen easily after you catch a wave. So that's all the way snug, and then I back off a shade. We want these to flop around with gravity and not have any friction. All right, and our last step is going to be to tape the wire to the mast with the guide. So I have my guide off to the side. If you have the Armstrong one, remember the tapered side that goes down is a wider cutout on the end, and the narrower side goes up due to the mast being tapered, or else it's going to sit sideways. So this goes in, I put it about midway where I need it, and then I hold it in place with my finger. I'm getting my tape out. You want to start by wrapping the leading edge of the mast so that the water flow is actually helping push the tape on. And the goal is to get it as wrinkle-free as we can. So I left a little tail there that I'm wrapping around the mast. I'm going to try to get all my bubbles and wrinkles out, push the wire into the guide, and then now it's set where I need it. I'm doing the same thing on the back side, getting out my wrinkles. And then now that I've done one complete circle around the mast, when I hit this leading edge, I'm going to go downward at an angle. And you're going to stretch the tape and have to smooth out some wrinkles as you go because of that angle we just put into it. And then on the back side, you'll be going straight across again because you're lined up with your last piece. And then we need one more wrap. So I'm going to go down at an angle again and just get the tail end of this in place, smoothing out my wrinkles. I'm going to come around straight again, and then I'm going to just pass the leading edge, and then I'm going to take my razor blade and I'm going to cut the tail after it's passed. So again, just gentle pressure, sharp razor blade. I usually cut it at an angle just because it's easier to start the tape roll again. And then the goal is to smooth out any of these wrinkles. So now the water flow will push the tape down and won't try to peel it off. And that's all we have. So the motor's been cleaned and placed back. It is common to get a little bit of Corrosion X running down it if you leave it in your car or on the workbench. So just keep a paper towel or a rag handy till you run it again in the water. Thank you.